Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Allen, thank you for your service to the country. I followed you on TV closely the last couple of months, and I thought you'd done a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Am I correct? We're operating currently in the Middle East under the 2001 AUMF?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would it be a fair statement to say the one the President has sent to us to consider is actually a limiting AUMF compared to the 2001 authorization?
It is specifically intended to deal with the threat of ISIL. That is correct.
But it's limiting in the authority the President would have primarily by the interpretation of the enduring phrase. Is that correct?
Enduring and the expectation, as he has described it in the proposed legislation, on the size and the kinds of forces that might be applied, measures that might be applied. That's correct.
Like Senator Markey, I voted for the 2001 authorization when I was here. It came on the heels of 9/11/2001. It was passed at a time when Americans had American flags on their windshields and their front doors, and American businesses had flags raised, and the patriotism in our country, because of the terrible attack against our country, was at an all-time high, at least in my lifetime, in my memory. Are we going to have to wait for that type of event again to happen to us before we use whatever it takes to destroy this evil? Meaning ISIL and looks like them?
I think we're taking those measures now to get after the evil that is ISIL. And it's an evil we haven't seen before in a very long time. Just today, the FBI rolled up 3 individuals in this country that were intent of either joining ISIL in the battle space or doing ill to the American people. And as long as we're at the front edge of this and taking those kinds of measures, I think we have the possibility of keeping it from becoming something that could look like a 9/11.
In your printed statement, and I assume it's part of your remarks that you said verbally, you said it will ultimately be the aggregate pressure of the coalition's activity over multiple mutual supporting lines of effort that will determine a campaign's success.
That's correct, sir.
What are those mutually supporting lines that you're referring to?
First, working very closely within the coalition and more broadly in the community of nations to limit the flow of foreign fighters. To deal with to take the measures necessary to deal with the ability to limit ISIL's capacity to generate revenue, ultimately to support its operations and to give it discretion to take action against us or potentially our allies. To provide support to those elements of the population in the region that have been displaced by virtue of the activities of ISIL or have been directly suppressed by the boot of ISIL's conquests and subjugation. And then very importantly, to work together in the information space, ultimately to defeat the idea of Daesh. And the coalition's working very hard in those areas. I've just come back from Southeast Asia, where I met with leadership of several countries there. They are watching with great interest and concern those things that are occurring in the Middle East, which could spread into their region, and they're interested in joining us in ways that can limit the ability of those organizations there to travel to the battle space or to limit their ability to directly challenge the authorities of those countries. So it's not just the countries of the Middle East, it's not just the countries of Europe, it's the countries of Southeast Asia. And very importantly, within the context of the multiple lines of effort, working very closely to outreach to the indigenous populations of these countries in ways that can dispel the image of this so-called caliphate, in ways that can work with religious leaders and tribal leaders in those countries with populations that may be at risk, is to work with teachers and clerics and families to reduce the attractiveness of Daesh and this kind of an extremist message. And the combination of all those activities together, we think will pressure and ultimately put the kinds of pressure necessary on Daesh, first to defend ourselves and ultimately to defeat the organization.
On that point, and very briefly, because my time will be up in about 45 seconds.
Yes, sir.
Are we doing enough to counteract the use of social media and technology to communicate exactly what you're talking about that they're doing? Because what you heard about in Southeast Asia and what I've heard from on some trips I've taken is the fear they'll use social media and the modern communication mechanisms that we have today to spread their ideology and their fear around the world. Are we attacking that as much as we should?
They're doing it now. And it is, in fact, an explicit objective within our efforts, within the counter-messaging line of effort among the many nations involved to do just that. Obviously, in nations where free speech is an issue, that we have to accommodate that aspect of our relationship with industry that owns these platforms to ensure that we're either able to interdict that message or work with industry to remove that message in its own content. So we're working very closely, actually, with industry and with our partners to counter that message across all the social media.
Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, sir.